Okay, here we come to development variance permit, 0311. This is, okay. So this is regarding the, what's the name? Dahoon, the Dahoon family. And I'll get Ann to set this up for us if that's possible. Yeah, really loudly.
So, in 2011, Mr. and Mrs. Dahoon, owners of 1145 Canoe View Place, applied for a development variance permit. They currently reside in Alberta. They wish to build a secondary building prior to building their primary residence, and they wanted a variance for the height of that secondary building as well. This development variance permit was approved with a requirement to begin construction on the primary residence within 2 years. Recently, the Dahoons have contacted the village. Their circumstances have changed and they're unable to begin construction at this point. And they had originally requested an extension to their variance permit. So in considering options with the Dahoons, they have put forward a schedule to which they would commit to build. It's a long schedule. It's not within a normal building schedule, but it does, if the village were to agree to that, it does provide for tangible steps at which we can see progress to their commitment to build a permanent home rather than only have an accessory building in place. It does require that there would be extensions to the building permit. Our building permits currently, through bylaw, are for 2 years. So there would be an understanding that there would be, that extensions to that would be required. The alternative is an extension to the development variance permit.
Okay.
Without a lot of other alternatives.
Okay, fair enough.
I just have a couple of questions here. And I don't know if this is the right place to ask those questions.
Probably not,
But I'm going to ask anyways. And maybe this is assumption too, because I'm assuming that the secondary, what they've built now, there's probably a suite in there for them to come and stay. And if that's the case, you know, with a garage and a place on top, it's a pretty attractive idea for people that don't live, that are people that come and visit on the weekends. And I'm just wondering, our bylaw states we are only allowed to have one residency on the property unless there was to be an amendment or a development variance permit to that. It would be interesting to see how other communities that deal with weekend residents deal with something like this, instead of, like, I can see lengthening the permit for another 2 years and then another 2 years and another 2 years, and I don't see it but being a time suck for staff time, and to maybe just think a little bit outside the box to see how else we could accommodate those people that may want to build something to hold their toys and have a small space to stay. I'm just, do you know what I'm saying? Instead of having maybe people don't want to build a house and maybe they want a garage and a suite on top, and who are we to...
Could I interject?
Yes, do it.
So I appreciate what you're saying, and it's a way to legalize the structure and make this possible. It has tremendous planning implications. So I'm just putting that out there, right? Is that what you're saying is your house on 5th Avenue, the house next door, could be a garage with a A-frame suite on top of it, right? So this has huge consequences. So I think we need to at least get some work around this. But the other thing is, what do the people who own the property want? So I think we've got some background work to do on that. But maybe we could flush that out. Is this like killer timeline, this one, or do we have some play time?
Development variance permit extends at the end, or expires at the end of June.
Okay, so we've got a little bit of time, so we could do some research and think about that. And I think I don't want to be presumptuous and say that that's not a direction that we want to go. I don't want to say that, but I just do see it as being a planning issue that could, you know, what you say is interesting, but maybe we could get staff to think about what the consequences of that would be.
Of course.
And
But
yeah.
I just don't see the lengthening of a, anyways, we can have a conversation about this some other
No,
time, but-
it's fair. One of the things is that when you grant sort of oddball stuff to say, yeah, you build a garage first. One of the things that people don't recognize, and you see it at the regional district all the time, is you have to be pretty clear about what you're doing, because you don't really have a lot of tools to rein stuff in afterwards.
No.
If somebody builds on a property, it's their property, you know, and they've got the thing going on there, and there's a limitation. So if anything, I think this example speaks to thinking we have control in ways that we really don't, you know? And so when we grant things going forward, we can say, well, we're gonna police it in this particular way. And no, we're not. We haven't got the time or the resources or the tools to do that. So what I'd say is this sort of confirms my commitment to trying not to do things that we wanna take back later or change up.
So maybe we could defer this until we find out some more information.
Does that sound reasonable to staff?
We could look at risks.
Well, has anyone asked, you know, when they plan to build the house or if they are going to?
It's like 5
Oh,
years.
it's huge
6
timeline.
years. 6 years, yeah. So that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to the neighbors.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't
Yeah,
think it's
that's right.
fair to the other residents of the
No.
community that have
You bet.
spent money building homes and they're dedicating to live here full time.
they're gonna pull in their truck and camper and park beside their garage. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah,
For 6 years.
yeah.
I mean, that's not a very timely schedule, I don't think. Just my comments.
Okay.
It's one of the consequences of allowing a variance like this, is that you may end up in a situation where the answers are really difficult.
I think we need more answers.
Okay.
before we-
All right, well, let's refer this to staff. And is there enough information, Braden, to get, and, yeah? Good, okay. So we've been clear. We'll motion to refer it to staff. Councillor Salt and Councillor Bullock. And all in favor? Okay, excellent. Okay, 8.5, there's a letter here to Adrian Dix advocating support for geothermal research and development. And one probably wonders why the letter is only to Adrian Dix and not to all the party leaders. I'm just gonna set that one up. Yeah, thanks. So, while lobbying to, the Green Party has done a great job of raising the specter of geothermal. They spoke a lot about it during their campaign. And we recognize, and we had a meeting with Borealis Geothermal in our discussions around how does the village of Valemount be an advocate for geothermal? And what do we see our role as? And some really interesting things arose as to where we could possibly do. Unfortunately, because of the time restrictions of council and that we don't meet every day and that these things take time, and I had worked hard with staff and with our partners at Borealis Geopower to draft a letter to the leaders of the parties speaking to geothermal, but the concept was really kind of new, and I think council rightly said, we're not ready to move on this. We're not ready to send this official letter out to all the parties or whatever. Anyways, at NCLGA in Quesnel, I had a chance to speak to Adrian Dix at the back of a room, and I mentioned this concept of geothermal. And he said, okay, send me some information on this. And so that's what this letter is here. So I apologize if this looks like partisan politicking, but when I went back to council and I said, I've had this conversation, do you think it's okay? Because my feeling is that before the election, then rather than right after, is a powerful time to introduce ideas. So I thought if we could at least get it into one party. And council supported me in that, and I appreciate that a ton. Thank you for that. And what we're doing here today is approving that letter that was sent out. And we did get it out to you guys and we spoke about it. So I move that we approve the attached letter to Adrian Dix advocating. Okay, thank you. And discussion or?
We talked enough about it.
Sorry, all in favor? It's just a letter, okay. Okay, on to 8.6. In your agenda, it's just page 51 to 189.
With the addition of.
Okay, and with the addition of, there's a piece that many of you have.
Your worship, you may want to have that 20 of the amended
Yeah.
reports were printed and that if people are willing to share.
Okay, so we have 20 amended reports, the subject being legal advice regarding SASFE. And these are just loose and they're around, and I can see Marion is kindly sharing them right in the front row. Have you got a copy of this, Marion? And that's what you're sharing with Pat Bennett?
Yeah, we're sharing.
Good.
We're sharing time.
Okay, there's still one chair in the front of the room here. If somebody really needs to sit down, there is a chair open here. And there's two at the back. There's two chairs at the back. Please, okay, all right, okay. So, the purpose of this report is to provide council with further information received from the village retained by municipal lawyers this afternoon regarding the proposed SASFE development. Staff had a series of phone calls and email correspondence with village lawyers. To summarize, the following legal advice was received. That a development agreement is not a commonly used tool for agreements between municipalities and developers in BC. The Local Government Act does not speak to an agreement, and as such, recent court decisions have shown that in some instances, development agreements in British Columbia do not carry statutory authority. The Local Government Act provides the following tools for agreements with developers: zoning for amenities and affordable housing, which is section 904 of the Community Charter. Is that right? Or is that the Local Government Act? Yeah, it's the Community Charter.
No, the local government act.
It's in the Local Government Act.
Yeah, all
When you're in
plannings
the-
in local.
when you're in nines, you're in local government.
Okay. Housing agreements for affordable and special needs housing, section 905, or phased development agreements, section 905.1. From these, legal advice indicated that a phased development agreement was the only appropriate tool for the village of Valemount to use in the case of SASFE, because a phased development agreement allows for agreement on community amenities, the tax payment, and property tax maintenance obligations, and the final details of servicing. In order to reach a phased development agreement with a developer, the following legal advice was received. A council resolution affirming that it has adopted the comprehensive development zoning for the SASFE land, approval of a subdivision and development service agreement in principle, which is now referred to, this is the agreement that we worked on long and hard with our partners in SASFE, as well as our planning partners, which is now, it was called a development agreement, but the appropriate title for that document is Subdivision and Development Servicing. Subdivision and Development Servicing Agreement. Of note, a subdivision and development servicing agreement is an agreement between a developer and a local government for provision of services or facilities required, directly or indirectly, for development. A letter to SASFE enclosing the subdivision and development servicing agreement and the following text, which is here. Please be advised that the Council of the Village of Valemount, in open meeting assembled, passed a resolution on Tuesday, May 14th, 2013, pursuant to which Council affirmed the adoption of the Comprehensive Development 1 zoning. I'm just going to say the legal name, CD1 zoning, for the SASFE lands, and further approved the proposed SASFE subdivision and development servicing agreement in principle. The village would be interested in revising the development agreement to be registered in the Land Title Office and to provide that council and future councils shall not downzone the subject lands under section 905.1 of the Local Government Act, and the undersigned looks forward to hearing from you in this regard. So, I'm gonna move to the more succinct, recommendation here. The recommendation from staff is this. Council affirms that it has adopted CD1 for the Sass Bay lands. That's something we need to do tonight. Council hereby approves the Sass Bay subdivision and development servicing agreement in principle. That we direct the CAO to deliver a letter enclosing the proposed subdivision and development servicing agreement to Sass Bay, worded as follows. It's addressed to Sass Bay. Dear Sirs, Madame, please be advised that the Council of the Village of Valemount, an open meeting assembled, passed a resolution on Tuesday, May 14th, 2013, pursuant to which Council affirmed the adoption of CD1 zoning for the Sass Bay lands and further approved the proposed Sass Bay subdivision and development servicing agreement in principle. The village would be interested in revising the development agreement to be registered in the Land Title Office and to provide that council and future councils shall not downzone the subject lands under section 905.1 of the Local Government Act. And the undersigned looks forward to hearing from you in this regard. So,
Can I provide 2 clarifications?
absolutely.
2 quick clarifications in regard to the recommendations, and these are just additional advice that I verbally received from the retained village lawyers. The first is that approval of the subdivision and development servicing agreement in principle means no signatures to the document. It stays in draft form. It is council's willing to share the document with the developer for the developer's use in terms of getting financing and moving the project along, but there are no signatures and it is still draft. The second is that in the clause and in the letter where it says that council and future council shall not downzone the subject lands, that clause would only be in effect so long as the land remains in ownership of the current owner.
Okay,
But that would not be retained
In perpetuity.
in perpetuity.
I see.
And we could actually add that in the letter too, but if that was a concern. But those were verbally expressed this
Okay.
afternoon.
Okay, fair enough. So, council, it is tough when we get late-breaking word from our lawyers. It sort of changes our game plan. And at the same time, we obviously have an obligation to the people of Valemount and to follow the legal advice that we've required. Yeah, so I want to encourage discussion, I guess. Yeah,
Want to open it up and put it on the table first?
okay, so motion to, so I'll move this recommendation
Receive
that
the
I,
report. Receive the report and then you can open it.
okay, I'll move receipt. Councillor Bullock. Okay, and let's have a discussion.
So the only thing that's changed on this document is the title?
No.
There have been others changes?
There's another changes.
That stuff in green?
No, the changes primarily, and there's a lot of changes, but the indemnification to the village has been, section 18, has been substantially updated based on legal advice.
Not 18.
I think it should be 28.
Yeah,
Or
Oh,
something.
28, pardon me,
well, the numbering is,
my numbering is off, I apologize.
Okay, we're gonna need to amend the numbering.
It's a draft form, so
Okay,
it doesn't,
okay, fair enough. So 28 is on the inside last page. Okay, I mean, this is clear stuff, so I'm gonna go through some of this, and it's gonna sound very familiar to everyone. That the owner indemnifies the village. The owner covenants and agrees to save harmless from effectually indemnify the village against all actions, proceedings, costs, damages, expenses, claims, and demands whatsoever and whomsoever brought by reason of the execution of the works by this agreement. All such claims recoverable from the village or the property by duty or custom is obliged directly or indirectly in any way or to any degree to construct, repair, maintain during the term of the owner's work shall be paid by the owner, and if recoverable from the village, shall, together with any costs and expenses incurred in connection therewith, be charged and paid forthwith by the owner. This is not rocket science. The idea here is that if actions or proceedings or costs or damages come, that they belong with the project, that they don't get foisted on us. Section 2, all expenses, costs which may be incurred by reason of the execution of the required works resulting in damage to any property owned in whole or in part by the village, for which the village by custom or duty is obliged directly or indirectly in any way to any degree to construct, repair, maintain, shall be paid by the owner, and if paid by the village shall, together with any costs, expenses incurred in connection herewith, be charged to and paid forthwith by the owner. There's a third piece here. All expenses and costs which may be incurred by reasons of liens, how do you say that word? Liens, thank you, for non-payment of labor or materials, workman's compensation assessments, unemployment insurance, federal or provincial tax, and for encroachments due to mistakes in survey, and all such claims recoverable from the village or the property of the village or any property which the village by duty or custom is duly obliged, directly or indirectly, in any way or to any degree to construct, repair, maintain, shall be paid by the owner. And if recovered from village, the village shall, together with any costs and expenses incurred in connection therewith, be charged to and paid forthwith by the owner. One more bullet, I'll read it, because this is a significant addition. All expenses, costs which may be incurred by the village as a result of faulty workmanship and defective material in any of the works installed by the owner.
Building on that, and just for council's benefit, the following section with mislabeled 23, it should be 29, insurance. That entire section has been updated, as well as I believe, and forgive me, this was on my computer, 23, 24, 25, and 26.
Okay,
And there were other sections that were altered or amended.
okay. So, yeah,
This seems to be a cautious document. It both supports the developer and it also is looking out for the best interests of the village in the long term. This is the biggest proposal that the village will see when it takes place. I think it's very important that we're thorough with both our lawyers and crossing our T's and dotting our I's. That's my 2 cents.
absolutely. That's our primary role here, is to safeguard the interests of the village. Yeah.
It's just hard to make a decision when we've been given paperwork that's been altered from what we read 20 minutes before we're supposed to make a huge decision. You know, like it's just, you know, I've read through what we had and now you said this has been changed. Here, make a decision, you have 10 minutes, you know?
All right, so what we're trying to do here, I would say, is accommodate a developer. So we've been working really hard. Now, I know that's not the assertion of the developer, but I can tell you that this village has been pounding the pavement trying to get its act together so it can support this development. Now, I will just want to point out a couple things here. This village signed a development permit, did it not? In 2008, which went nowhere. This village has done a ton of work and a ton of due diligence. There's a public comment section at the end, so I encourage you to save your comments for that.
Can I just interject? I do want to apologize to council. I am so very sorry. We would normally have waited until our legal counsel had provided advice for this. We were working very hard to try to meet a schedule that works for the developer as well. And we're provided this date as a a last possible date. And that's why the information came forward pending legal advice. I have a lot of communications throughout April and into May where back and forth between the developer, a consultant drafting this development agreement, the village looking at different drafts of it, providing comments, providing corrections and amendments and clarifying questions. And the final approval from the developer came in just late last week, at which time we built the agenda, sent the draft off to the lawyers for advice, and crossed all our fingers that we would get that as quickly as possible. My apologies that only came
So
forward
just for
this
clarification, we got this 1 week ago from the developer and are expected to move on it. Now, we are making a massive decision for the future of the village of Valemount. That is not done lightly, that is done with legal advice. And so, to suggest that, at any rate, I won't go off on it. I just want to support, it's very easy to make claim against the village. The work of the village is to represent our interests as a community. That's what we need to keep our eye on the ball.
Can I just jump in on that really quickly? The initial document that came forward and that we've been discussing, which is now entitled the Subdivision and Development Servicing Agreement, we were originally calling the Development Agreement, and that was what the developer asked us for. In discussions with our legal advice, it really became apparent that the term Development Agreement is not a normal tool for use in British Columbia. It's something that's more often used in other provinces, but in BC, the Local Government Act doesn't speak to the term Development Agreement. And in fact, in another municipality, a district actually, not too long ago, the local government signed a development agreement with the developer. The development happened, and as soon as the development was finished, the developer turned around and sued the municipality, saying that the development agreement was illegal under BC law. And the municipality had to pay everything back that it was promised by the developer, and they were out everything. And our legal counsel strongly cautioned that the development agreement is not a statutory tool under the Local Government Act, and is not appropriate for this development. So with that in mind, he proposed the amendment, and he suggested that council approve it in principle. So going back to your comment, which is totally justified that you haven't had a chance to read it, we're not asking for, the recommendation is not for final approval. We're not putting a signature on it if you go with the staff recommendation. It's approval in principle to allow the developer to take this document back to her financiers and continue along with her business.
And is this going to allow her to do that?
So that we can keep moving forward with this?
The advice from the lawyer was that this agreement, in combination with the CD1 zoning, is above and beyond what most municipalities would do for a developer, and it's above and beyond what financiers would expect.
Councillor Latimer.
I just have a couple of questions. Number one, it just seems a little odd that today we find out that the development agreement is not looked at in BC. Number two, that the lawyer just tells us today. So has he had this document for a week?
Received it on May the 8th.
And today he tells us that it's not in our best interest to look at the development agreement, which has been in the works for 4 months, right?
Not the best.
Just a little blindsided.
He actually said it's not a legal document. It doesn't carry statutory weight in court.
So the consultant that we had should have known that or not?
These are really complex matters. We're in kind of new territory, so we're all learning.
Okay, further comments?
Do we know for certain why this needs to be presented and decided on today. Do we have a firm date that the developer and financiers have as a deadline? Council has held special meetings before. Is it possible to defer for a few days until this can be sent off to the developer's consultant and financiers to see if it possibly meets with their needs? And then hold a special meeting to actually approve the document if it does meet with their needs?
Thoughts, Ann?
That certainly would give council more time to consider, to actually read the document, consider all the elements of it.
What do we do if they say it's not gonna meet
Their needs.
Then your responsibility is to the village. Your responsibility is to look after the best interests of the village.
And building on that, we did ask our legal advice to provide us the best possible options for the developer. And this was what came back.
Can we just point out to the public that this also doesn't enable groundbreaking? This is only enabling financing for bridge financing. Ground can only be broken after a development permit is issued, and we're not even there.
So, to build on that though, and Anne, please jump in if you've got words of wisdom too. I'm learning here. The phased development agreement, which is what's recommended by the lawyer, is the primary tool for negotiating amenities, services, tax payback schedule, etc., etc. It's the one-stop shop document. As per our official community plan, a development permit is only to ensure that the development meets the requirements of the development permit area. Now, the development permit area is specifically for form and character. It's a visual thing. It's meeting the mountain feel, the pastel colors, the peaked roofs, that kind of thing. So within the development agreement, we have the development permit. We have very limited options in terms of protecting ourselves through these clauses that are in here, for speaking through to water, to sewer, to traffic, to all the other issues. That's not the place for it in the development permit. It's in a phased development agreement. And so, even though this has been pitched to us by the developer as a bridge for financing, it really is the one-stop shop for getting everything right. And if we approve it now without getting things right, there won't be a tool later on.
But back to your question, yes, construction does not begin based on a phased development agreement as well. There's still more.
We're steps away from that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay.
Can we ask the developer some questions or not?
It's possible, but, yeah, go
My
ahead.
understanding is the developer's project manager is handling the file and probably has the most up-to-date information.
The developer is here.
And he can be put on speakerphone right now. So put him on speakerphone, he's waiting, and you can ask him all the questions.
We would have to check our procedural bylaw if that's allowed, and I don't think
I don't know
that is.
that we have the.
Can we take a 5-minute break?
Yeah, let's take a 5-minute break and we're gonna check on that. Do you think that's possible?
I'm looking to my CAO. Actually, I apologize, I should have it in my
That's
drawer.
very,
Is this not better for a special meeting?
Yeah,
Okay, we're gonna take a 5-minute recess, talk amongst yourselves. Okay, so we'll call this meeting back to order. Thank you for your patience. So we won't hear from the developer by speakerphone. Another option available to us is to have a special council meeting to meet the deadlines that are there. So the recommendation so is that something we do by, we resolve to have a special council meeting at this point? What's the procedure for that?
you could just resolve to defer this to a special council meeting
Okay,
and allow council to set that date when they're comfortable. We need 24 hours notice for a special council meeting.
okay. So I'm gonna make a motion to that effect, that we defer this to a special council meeting. Someplace with air conditioning. And can I get and we'll set up the time.
Can we do that now or no?
Good, if you want.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've got everybody in the room right now, so sure. Zach, when's good for you? All right. So we need 24 hours notice?
We can also waive the requirement to advertise.
Okay.
Because Councillor Latimer will be leaving,
I'm
so.
leaving for a funeral Thursday,
Okay.
so it's either gonna be tomorrow or 8 o'clock Thursday morning.
What time do you work tomorrow?
I don't,
Can we do it at 3:30?
Think about
Yeah,
this
Does that work for you?
time.
that's not a lot of time.
Okay.
Okay, I'll move to have a special meeting tomorrow afternoon at 3:30.
Perfect. I'll second the motion. All in favor?
Can council also agree to waive 24 hours
We should
notice?
agree to waive, because we won't have that 24 hours notice.
And I'll just add to that motion that we'll agree to waive the 24-hour notice.
This would be the notice right now.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we've got a seconder for the motion. Discussion?
Is the developer coming to this meeting, or is this just council, or?
This will be an open meeting. And it'll be an opportunity to make a accommodation for the developer. You know what? I'm not sure about that timeline. We need to make sure that the developer can participate in a fulsome way. And we may or,
Tuesday. Following Tuesday.
Would it be fair to say,
Can we ask?
I'm sure that that it's important that the developer would.
yeah, for sure it is. Can we just say that we'll have a special council meeting and set the time? I mean, or do you want to schedule it right now and see when the developer, okay. So are we able to, Ms. Sander? We're talking about having a special council meeting to do this. What is a time that would work? We were talking about 3:30 tomorrow.
I will be here until we can get that signed so I can send it off to the lender, and I will stay here until I get it.
3:30 works.
Okay. All right. Okay, very good. So we got the second, all in favor of the motion? There you go. Okay. Before we leave this, I want to say a couple things that I've been thinking about in conjunction with this program, this project. As has been pointed out by Councillor Salt, is this piece that we're working on represents the village administration going above and beyond outside the duties that are normally associated with development to help keep this project alive. So we've hired a consultant to help us do that, to draft this document, and we've consulted with the lawyer. So I'm given to believe that some locals are feeling that this is the piece that needs to happen to move this project forward. This doesn't move the project forward, it keeps it from dying. That's what it does. So we need to be realistic. For the second time in 6 years, the developer is paying their taxes just in advance of the property going up for sale. This is where we're at. If investment for the project were ready to go with a strong business case and construction plans in place, the developer would be applying for development permits, not this development agreement or service agreement as we have. I appreciate the developer's position and the timeliness of providing this development agreement, which we are going to be setting a special council meeting to do. The developer's situation is of real concern, but our role here is to determine the best interest of the village. We are not the village of Sass Bay. We are the village of Valemount. We are not allowed credit for any developer, and we should never act like one. I want to talk about upkeep of the property. One of the issues I'd like to see council's thoughts on as we negotiate this next step is on the general upkeep of the property. There's no provision in this agreement that we have. We need one. The property's in the heart of Valemount. And for 6 years, it's been in really tough shape. When developers bring projects forward, they need to respect the people that live here, both before and after the project. I've heard people speaking about the amazing amount of investment that the proponent has made into our community. And I recognize that there's an investment. But I want to talk about some other investments that I see when I look out at Valemount, 2013. I see young families working when new homes are built by Whisper Creek Log Homes. I see investment in the Valemount Car Wash, in P&Vs being renovated. I see it in the Swiss Bakery, in the Lord Cooperation, serving customers and employing people. I see it in the brewery starting up. I see the Lucky House being built, and the Lucky Panda, and the Mountain Bargain secondhand store, and Valemount Taxi, and so many more organizations. Investment is happening. This is not our only hope, people. This is an option, and it's a developer that we can work with. But this is not the end of the line for Valemount. Further, I want to point out to the next item on the agenda, just to flash forward, Valemount Glacier Destinations, where we deal with a developer who has done this many times before, a developer who's been successful in other communities, although unsuccessful in some. This is a big project, and what you need to recognize is that these development agreements that we go through are a tremendous strain on our resources as a village. We're small, we have 5 senior staff, and we're rocking, man. We're up to our eyeballs. And yet we've got a provincial government that's saying, by this time next year, we will be able to break ground on Valemount Glacier Destinations. Can you imagine the amount of work that needs to happen? I don't want to fill you in with all the little nitty-gritty details that we need to be working on in this. But let me tell you about Revelstoke, where the taxpayers like you who live in the valley floor ended up paying for a fire truck for a resort, $1 million. $1 million bill because somebody didn't do their homework that an 8-story building needs a fire truck. People, this is real. Development is real, and there's lots of opportunities, but there are also lots of risks. And sometimes we need to choose our battles. I hope that SASFE will happen. I've told Ms. Sander that I like the idea of high-density housing. It's efficient, it's environmentally sensitive, it makes it possible for more people to live here in the core of our village. But we can't favor a developer over the well-being of the village. That's not where it's at. So our lawyers have advised us and they've given us some direction, and we're obviously working very hard to do this. But I can't sit here and work through this issue with my council without bringing up to light some of these issues that I've faced. And I've had conversations with Ms. Sander, and I hope that our relationship going forward improves. I hope that there's more respect for the people that be here. I hope that preceding development, that we can see that piece, that jewel in the middle of Valemount, look good, be mowed. So they're good to their neighbors. This issue has created a sensation and it's brought a lot of people to the chamber. And we're moving through a very important period. And there's lots of pressures. And what I want you to do, don't do this. Don't minimize the pressures that are on this village council right now, because there are a lot. There is a ton. And it's easy to pull apart and pick up a single issue and go to your single councillor and just, drill them. Why aren't you doing this? Why is the village so backwards? People, this is really hard. We're in a tricky time. And this council, as much as any, deserves the respect of the people of this community. It's not a blank card. It's not that you can't criticize us or call us on stuff. But we need your help and participation. And when we ask for your support, and we ask when we come out to you, and thank you for coming out tonight and being a part of this community and being a witness to what we're trying to do here, I really appreciate it. Guys, we're all in this together. And I know tonight we look like the big bad village who reverted to some lawyer stuff so as not to get stuff done. That's not where it's at, people. Valemount is moving forward. Valemount is doing great things, and people beside you are doing fantastic things with their businesses. That's where it's at. This is Valemount. This is our reality. But we've got some tricky things to move through. So we need your understanding at this time. But let's move on to the next item.
So is there a general question period at the end, or is the process to...
Yes, so at the very end of the agenda, the last item is public comment. And so any item on the agenda at that time can be brought forward.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So the next item is Economic Development Officer Report. This is Valemount Glacier destinations, next steps. I'm just gonna pull up my full agenda here.
It's just the report. There's no support
Yes,
documentation.
okay. So the report. Okay, so I've got a shorter recommendation here. Oh, actually, it goes on. Okay, here we go. So this is a staff recommendation.
Your worship,
Yeah,
can I sit?
please set it up. Yeah.
Oh, okay. The village has recently met with the developer and as well as in separate meetings.
One moment. I'd ask everybody to stop flipping pages for a moment. Ann doesn't speak that loudly, so if everybody's to hear, you really need to be quiet. Thank you. You're a very
So
loud
we-
speaker, Ann. No, you do wonderful.
I speak well when I'm standing up.
Okay.
We've met with the regional district and with the province regarding next steps for this proposal. We recognize that this is a proposal of significantly more complexity even than SASFE, and the village does not have the expertise to manage and understand the complexity of this. We have a $500,000 taxation budget every year, and that's not enough to fund the type of expertise that we're going to need to look into this. The province has suggested they may be able to help us, but in order to move that onto their agenda, they need to have these resolutions. And I need to point out that these are not options, it's all three
Yes.
resolutions. We're seeking council support in order to even investigate whether a boundary extension would be in the village's best interest. We don't know that. We know there's communities that have done boundary extensions. We know that there are some that have chosen not to. And we need to understand the rationale behind each of those decisions. We need to understand what's best for Valemount.
Okay, so I'll read out the recommendation. That council authorize staff to seek funding for a study on possible boundary extension options for the proposed Valemount Glacier Destination Resort. That council will consider a proposed Valemount Glacier Destination Resort area boundary extension pending an assessment of boundary expansion options. That council authorize staff to develop, sign, submit the proposal to the Ministry of Community, Sport and Cultural Development pending an assessment of boundary extension options and consideration of boundary extension options by council. So that's fancy language to say that we're going to begin investigating this and look for funding for it. That's kind of where it's at if we want to proceed or, okay. And discussion?
Gotta keep moving forward.
Okay, all in favor?